the things that that go into a fast. Okay, but the word that's used in the Arabic is sawm. The indication for that is the sentence right after that. Once you've taken this vow of silence, فَلَنْ أُكَلِّمَ الْيَوْمَ إِنْسِيًّا, then you'll say that as of now, because I've taken the sawm, I'm now sa'ima, I'll no longer speak to a person. Right? So that indicates that it's a fast of the tongue and not a fast of the stomach. Right? Is that clear? So that's the kind of fast that she's doing. Now, it's important to notice that this is not something that we're allowed to do. In their sharia, in the sharia of Bani Israel, this was allowed apparently, to take a vow of silence and not speak for a day, for instance. In Islam, though, it's haram. We're not allowed to make that kind of a fast. We have fasting, which is what we're used to, but you can't ever take a vow of silence. It's haram to do that. Okay. So before we go on, let me tell you the story, how things progress from there, and then we'll go to the verses. So now she has the child. She has her line of self-defense as well to say that she's taking this vow of silence. With that, she grabs the child, probably swaddles him in something, and she takes him back to Jerusalem. Remember, she's out in the desert somewhere near that date palm that's now given fruit, and she's eaten from it. So with the child, she walks back to her people, to Jerusalem. When she goes there, you just imagine, and everyone, it's just a huge scandal. Everyone, if they're staring here and they're saying, who's this child, Maryam? She's not supposed to have a child. She's this pious, chaste girl who's always been in the temple. First of all, what is she doing outside? And secondly, what is she doing with this child? So they all start whispering and talking and gossiping and saying, what's this? And then somebody confronts her as well. They confront her and they say, Maryam, this looks like some new thing. It's a new trend that you're setting in your family. Very sarcastically. Until now, we thought you were a chaste girl. Until now, we never knew anything bad to come from your family. Your father wasn't a licentious person. He wasn't after women all the time. Your mother's not an adulteress going after men. Right? This isn't the family of Harun that we know. Like, what have you started? What is this new tradition that you're trying to set for your family? And very sarcastically, they say this. Of course, she can't say anything. Like perhaps right at that moment she made the fast of silence. She refrained from saying anything, and all she does is she points to the child. Almost like ask him. When she does this, they're even more perturbed. The people who've been sarcastically addressing her, they're more perturbed. They say, "What do you think we're crazy? How are we supposed to talk to this little baby?" Right? At that, Isa alayhi salam speaks. Imagine a baby, and also Allah, he speaks himself. He declares who he is. He lists a bunch of different traits for himself, praises himself, and lets them know who he is. And he doesn't even need to say anything about his mother. He doesn't even need to address their complaints and their accusations. He doesn't even need to do anything. All he needs to do is let them know who he is, and the fact that he's speaking as an intelligent person, as a child, is enough to dispel all their doubts, and they have to realize, they have no choice but to realize that this is a miracle of God, and God's hand is in this, therefore it can't be anything immoral. So let's go through the verses and see what the Quran tells us. 1927 says, فَأَتَتْ بِهِ قَوْمَهَا تَحْمِلُهُ قَالُوا يَا مَرْيَمْ لَقَدْ جِئْتِ شَيْئًا فَرِيًّا. Then she brought him to her people, carrying him in her arms. They said, "Oh Mary, you have done something novel." This word fari, there are two meanings that the commentators mentioned for it. I've chosen one of them to translate it as something novel, something new. One of the meanings that they say is that it comes from the word iftira. This word comes in the Quran a lot. Iftara, aftara alallahi kadiban. Right? Do they lie about Allah? To do iftira is to lie about somebody, to attribute false, kind of make false accusations about somebody. Right? So, for instance, saying Isa alayhi salam is God, that's iftira. You're lying, you're making up something about him. So they say that this word also comes from that same root of iftira, to lie. And the reason it's used for something that's very, very, very wicked, very, very evil, kind of an awful sort of a thing, a terrible sort of a thing. That's what fari is used in that sense for. And the reason it's used for an illegitimate child, for zina, for adultery, is because a woman who, for instance, has a child out of wedlock, right? She'll falsely claim, she'll lie and say, "Oh, this is the child of my husband," when really he's not. He's the child of somebody else, right? So because she's lying like that about the relationship of this child to her husband, right? Generally, that might be the case. So the act of adultery is called an act that's fari. It's awful, terrible. It's a terrible thing. So if that was the case, and you translate the sentence as, "Oh Mary, you have done something terrible. You've done something awful here." Right? If that was the case, it would be a very sincere statement on their part, and they're sincerely shocked, and they're kind of frankly saying, "Well, this is really terrible. What's happened here?" Right? That's not very characteristic of the Jews in general, and certainly not the conversation that takes place with them here. Here, the spirit is a spirit of sarcasm. Right? And so for that reason, the second meaning of fari is a new or novel thing. Fari actually means to cut. Like for instance, when you're slaughtering, and the laws for how to slaughter an animal, right? One of the things is you have to do fari of these four kind of two arteries, and then the windpipe in the esophagus. These four tubes, right? So these four pipes, you have to cut them, and the word that's used is fari, to cut. So here, fari is almost like something on the cutting edge. And something on the cutting edge is something very new. It's they're sarcastically saying you're a pioneer in your family. You have this pious family from Harun all the way to here. Like people were chaste, you yourself were chaste, and now you're on the cutting edge of sexual indecency, of something haram. Right? So they're very sarcastically saying you've done something very, very novel, something new, with a smirk on their face. Then they address her, "Ya ukhta Harun, ma kana abuki imra'a saw'in, wa ma kanat ummuki baghiya." In 1928 they say, "O sister of Aaron, your father was not a lascivious man, nor was your mother an adulteress." Okay, so this follows very nicely with that interpretation of fari as you're a pioneer, right? You're doing something very novel and something new in your family. And they address her as sister of Aaron, ukhta Harun. There are a couple of different reasons why the commentators think that they referred to her as this. Basically, it boils down to four explanations, and there's no real reason or no way to know exactly which one's intended here. But probably the first one is the strongest. The first explanation is this: that Harun is the prophet Harun, the older brother of Musa alayhi salam. And the reason they call her Ukht Harun, sister of Harun, is despite the fact that she's actually a descendant of Harun. She's not the sister she's not on the same level. She's a way down in the line of Harun alayhi salam. But the reason they use this is it's a common usage in Arabic where you refer to a person who belongs to a particular tribe as a brother of that tribe. Right? So if you have, like, for instance, the tribe of Quraysh, and you want to refer to somebody who's from Quraysh, you would refer to him as Akhu Quraysh. Right? You call out to him and say Akhu Quraysh. Yeah, so that's a way to refer, and it's used in the Quran as well. For instance, you'll have the different prophets that came to these communities. They're referred to as their brother, right? We sent to, for instance, the people of Lut, Akhuhum Luta, right, or Akhuhum Nuha, and so forth. They'll refer to him as their brother. Like in some cases, like Lut, for instance, wasn't the brother of. He wasn't from actually from Sodom and Gomorrah.